Bulavinaka, namaste and good evening. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Tonight, as promised, we have another guest in studio to talk directly to you regarding issues that matter to you. We have the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad. Professor Prasad, thank you very much for coming in our studio today.
Pleasure to be here, Vijay, and good to see you.
Thank you very much, and on behalf of our audience, we greatly appreciate you taking out your time to talk to us. As part of the show, we had opened up questions. You could send questions to us in the form of call-ins or emails. Thank you very much for sending in your questions, and I'll try my very best to ask all your questions that you've given. There's many questions that are here. And we will continue to have this system of you sending in your questions and us fielding it to our guests when they come in on the show. Now, Professor Prasad, you were last on the show before the 2022 general elections, and in some of your responses you had said you will only be able to let the people know on what can be done after you actually find out what is the actual situation as far as government finances are concerned. So I ask you now, what is the actual situation as far as government debt, government revenue, and government expenditure is concerned?
Well, thank you, Vijay. You are absolutely right. In the last 4 months, you would have noticed that we have come out, quite consistently and talked about, some of these issues. Our debt level, our expenditure, our revenue, and wastage. And we have given, good examples of wastage. One that that we talked about, is about $400 million paid out, as subsidy or rebate to the audio, visual, and film industry. Plus, there are many others that we have articulated. What you will also see is that now, independently, the World Bank, the IMF, they have come out with their own assessment of the Fijian economy, the state of the fiscal position. And obviously, we were right, before we came into government, when we raised these issues about debt, about reckless spending, about controlling expenditure, about making sure that, projects were prioritized. So what we have found out in the last 3 to 4 months, and we've talked about it quite openly and transparently in an accountable way, is the debt situation. And the current debt level, as of April 2023, the debt to GDP ratio is 81.8%. We also found out, and this is very clearly articulated by independent reports, World Bank, IMF, we had one of the worst contractions. In fact, the 4th or 5th highest contraction of any economy in the world after COVID, which suggests to us and to the independent observers that our state of the economy before the COVID pandemic was bad. The economy had contracted in 2019. In fact, we had negative growth. So we are starting from a contraction of an economy by about 17-18% to a recovery of 15%, because when you go down, you have to come up. That's what you call growth, 15%. This year, we are expecting a growth rate of about more than 6%. But what I can tell you, Vijay, in the last 4 months, the level of confidence, the indicators, is very, very positive. In fact, a lot of people were saying that our recovery, it may take until 2024 before we go back to 2019 levels for our tourism. In fact, we are now looking at all our forward bookings, looking at what's happening in the hotel industry. The numbers are holding very strong, and we may make full recovery or better than 2019 by the end of this year. So that's another very good example of a very strong sign of recovery. The other point that we see, the banks are telling us there is a strong recovery, pipeline of loans, expenditure. There is a sense of confidence, exuberance. We saw that at the National Economic Summit, the passion with the investors. So with all that indicators, we feel that the growth rate for 2003, initially projected to be more than 6%, 6.3%, we could actually go up to 7 or 8%.
For 2023.
For 2023. And that's a very good sign. So while the debt situation is extremely concerning, 81.8%.
In dollar value, how much is that?
It's about $9,676.1 million, $1 billion, which is about 81.8% of GDP. And of that, our external debt, if I can give you, in fact, this represents a 2.4% increase from the previous quarter and a 12.5% increase when compared to the same period last year. As external debt portfolio, which is debt that we don't...
Offshore debt.
Offshore debt, like apart from the debt that we have from FNPF and domestic, borrowers, is about 3.5 billion, which is about 29.9% of GDP, which is again, quite significant. So what we are saying is that this is the new government has ushered in a new sense of confidence amongst our international partners, international donors. I've attended 2 big meetings, the World Bank, IMF annual meetings in Washington, recent one in Korea, the Asian Development Bank. And I think there is the whole geopolitics, the Indo-Pacific strategy, the sense that I'm getting from our international partners is that they have a lot of confidence. And some of the things that the government has done, in the last 4 months, particularly removing the Draconian Media Act, that itself has not only just inspired confidence in the media, it's actually inspired confidence and freedom in all sectors of the economy. Business people, those who were very strong supporters of the previous government, are now telling me that somehow the burden has been lifted from them. They feel free to talk about issues. So what we have done, Vijay, quite successfully as a government, apart from the issues that people have. I mean, I'm not saying that, there are no issues, there are no missteps. We accept that no government, can start by not taking some missteps. That's perfectly understandable. But overall, the confidence level is great. There is a little bit of wait and see, in some quarters, and we understand that. And once I announce the budget, that wait and see will also be gone.
Everybody's waiting for that budget that will be in July.
And so let me just conclude by saying that while the debt situation is very high, we have put in our fiscal strategy. We believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, we would bring the debt to GDP ratio down to about 70%. And we put a plan for the next 5 to 7 or 10 years to bring it down to 50%.
And your budget is expected to be delivered in July?
Budget is expected to be delivered in June, by end of June or July. We will announce the exact date.
Professor Prasad, the National Federation Party released the vision for Fiji ahead of the 2022 elections, where it said in the first 100 days it will slash government ministers' salaries and allowances by 1/3, request the Auditor General to help the Economy Ministry cut overspending, repeal the Itoke Land Trust Act 2021, previously known as Bill 17, return the USP Vice Chancellor Pala Luwalia to Fiji, inquire into millions of dollars wasted on the Walesi project. Your comments on those that you have achieved and those that you have been unable to achieve, are you still trying to achieve it?
Well, you've listed USP, you've listed the Media Decree, you've listed the Itoke Land Trust Act, Walesi inquiry is already on. We are reviewing the Audit Act. We have already had meetings with the Auditor General's office. We have put in place a national public sector investment guidelines, and basically that public infrastructure guideline, because that's where a lot of the wastages happen. it was already been approved by Cabinet. It lays down very clearly from the inception of a project to the final implementation and evaluation. And what we want to do is to ensure that the audit office not only looks at everything at the end. Once everything is done, you get an audit report, a financial report, and you find that millions of dollars have been wasted and not prioritized. We want to create a system where there will be a continuous follow-up. We are strengthening the planning office within the Ministry of Finance to ensure that we provide the support to all the ministries so that these infrastructures. So some of the issues with respect to wastage and all that is being done. With respect to the allowances, you will understand, Vijay, that when allowances were increased, NFP in Parliament, when we were in opposition, we opposed it. We did not vote for it. Of course, you know, the agreement before the election was a coalition between the People's Alliance and the National Federation Party. You will have to understand that it is now a three-party coalition. We have a coalition agreement, and the Prime Minister has already announced that we will appoint an independent emoluments committee, which will review and look at all the salaries and allowances. In fact, all the cabinet ministers, assistant ministers, are already on a 20% reduced salary. So we have continued the 20% cut. And the next step would be to look at all the allowances and also look at whether we can make additional cuts to the 20% that's already. So every minister has a 20% salary cut.
What's the timeline for that?
The Prime Minister will be announcing that soon, and we could be having the Independent Emoluments Committee appointed in the next Parliament.
You talked about wastage of tax dollars. You had said the total amount of money before the elections being wasted through pilferage, abuse of office, reckless spending would be close to $500 million in a year. Have you established the wastage, where it has come from? And definitely when you were preparing for your next budget, taking that into account?
We have identified a number of areas, Vijay. First of all, is the infrastructure spending. And if you look at the amount of money, the amount of allocation that went to places like FRA and other infrastructure, and you look at what is the state of the infrastructure now. I mean, some of my staff that I took with me to Lambasa were actually shocked to see the health centers right from Draketi, Lakutu to Vanikoro, including the Lambasa hospital. They couldn't believe that somehow this is the level at which the public infrastructure, government quarters, help. We went to the Lambasa hospital, and the medical superintendent showed us the single nurses' quarters. There was nothing there. You know, in the living room, there was not even a chair. And he was telling us, you know, can you imagine why nurses would want to stay here? So what the previous government was interested in was building new infrastructure. So we built a hospital in Ronga, which is almost like a white elephant. We didn't fix Singatoka Hospital. We built big police stations, other infrastructure. So maintenance plans was never there. So in the next 2 or 3 budgets, we'll start with this budget, and for the next 2 or 3 budgets, we will have a maintenance plan. In fact, a budget process that will say, okay, you need to fix all these health centers in Vanuatu in this time period. So that's how we plan to cut wastages and prioritize expenditure so that the delivery of the service. You look at the state of the roads. You go around the country. I showed the road to my permanent secretary and senior staff when we were driving from Senganga to Draketi, a road which was built during the SBT days by Downer Company at that time. That road, till today, with all these heavy trucks, logging trucks, going to Nambualu, cargo trucks, it still doesn't have a pothole. because the drains and the way it was built. And so what we have seen, I mean, people are now complaining. I understand all the complaints with respect to our roads, because none of the drains and the roads gets bad the next day. Water infrastructure. We understand the pain, the difficulty that people have as a result of drought and water. The infrastructure, so what another thing that we've done, Vijay, is just in the last cabinet, which has already been announced by the Prime Minister, we passed a national infrastructure plan, with technical support from the infrastructure financing facility, the Australian infrastructure. And basically that plan lays out the ongoing projects and what we have almost a $5 billion deficit. If you look at our water infrastructure, our road infrastructure, our bridge infrastructure, for the next 5 or 6 years to be able to fix that. So that's all that planning is being done as a very clear process, and we've done that through a public infrastructure process and procedures plan, and we've got a public infrastructure plan now. And in 4 months, Vijay, we've done all this. We've got this all sorted out. And now we are ready to go into doing our budget. We are telling the people, look, we've told you in the last 3 or 4 months what were the problems. I think it's well known now. Now our focus is to start delivering, looking at the budget, making sure that we listen to all the criticisms, comments with respect to the World Bank report. The Fiscal Review Committee report is about to come out. They will be submitting the draft to me, and then once the report is finalized, I'll be releasing that as well. And we want people to debate about that as well.
To be open to any comments.
Open to any comments.
Now going to that question from Dr. Kunal Dayal.
Yeah.
Taking into account the rising cost of living, is the government going to further reduce the salary and packages, including overseas travel allowance of the PM? If yes, by when will this materialize?
As I said, we have already continued the 20% reduction, and the Prime Minister has announced, and it will be done very soon.
Question from Neha Prasad. You have claimed before the election that millions have been wasted by the Fiji First government while in power. What have you done to stop this? And in light of these allegations, how are you investigating this, and will people be taken to task?
Some people will be taken to task. Some investigations are on. Some things that we've done, for example, this $400 million rebate. It was almost, Vijay, like taking out taxpayer, hard cash and giving it to investors without actually understanding the cost and the benefits of what was accruing to the country. So we paid about $235 million already. We still have a balance to pay some of those, So what we are doing is reviewing that. We're making sure that while we provide incentives, we want the audiovisual and film industry to flourish, but we also want to make sure that it is done in a way that we do not end up. Imagine $400 million, that what would that could have been used.
Explain the $400 million, because people would want to know how that was done.
You see, it was the rebate was set at a very high rate. So, for example, if somebody who was here to make a movie and spent 100,000 expenditure, that company would get 70,000 back from the taxpayers. So the argument supposedly was that, okay, they're coming and spending $100,000, they might stay in a hotel, the hotels may charge them, exorbitant amount, so all that expenditure, but the taxpayers, you and I, would have forked out 70,000. Plus, in the initial condition, there was additional fee paid by the government, like the star fee, and you could have ended with a situation where you came and spent 100,000, you might walk away with 120,000 from the government as a gift.
And you're still paying it in installments right now.
We're still paying it in installments. So that's just one example. And there are numerous examples. Things might seem very legal, but we know that it was not a priority, it was not an expenditure that should have been taken at that time. So when we talk about wastage, pilferage, corruption, mismanagement, it's a combination of all these things. Some may be perfectly legal, approved, went through the process, but in economics we always talk about the opportunity cost. What is the best alternative? You have a limited resource. You have to make sure that you decide very carefully whether you want to upgrade the Nasori hospital or you want to give $200 million for some movie maker to come and make a movie in their hours. What do you choose? We chose movie making. And look at the state of the Nasori Health Center, hospital.
Have you completed,
that's like living example.
Have you completed investigations into government contracts and tenders issue?
That is under review. Vijay, I can tell you that I've already asked the people within my ministry to look at the whole tender process, tender committee, look at the terms of reference, how we can improve the process, the efficiency, and the scrutiny of how tenders are being awarded. There are a lot of variations that I now sign as Minister of Finance. So, you get a project, you are a contractor, you bid for it, you get it for $5 million. Then, over a period of time, you ask for 6 variations. Okay, some may be legitimate reasons, and then from 5 million, the cost would escalate to 10 million or 8 million. There are 2 other examples. Gobind Park in Ba, the initial allocation was 4 million. Now we are told that we probably need another 4 or 5 million to complete the project. Lotoka swimming pool is another example. And there are many other examples that we can talk about. But look, all that's done. Some we want to hold some people accountable, and they will. Others, we have to move on, legally done, but we know that the priority was different. So all these things put together, we want to now move ahead. We know what the situation is. We know what the debt level is. We know how far the economy is recovering. But we will not be able to solve everything. For example, our water problem, the Viria water project, which I acknowledge, which was a project started by the previous government. And we appreciate that. Once that comes on board, it's possible that we will solve 70 to 80% of our water problem. But there is a problem of old pipes, leaking pipes.
47% of treated water, taxpayer-funded treated water is lost in the ground.
Lost in the ground. And the last time some upgrade was done was 1981. We haven't done anything in the last 15 or 16 years. And people have to understand that. So that's what we are dealing with. And I'm not saying that. These are independent, World Bank, our development partners are saying that. And we have, as I said, the infrastructure deficit is huge, and it is a difficult problem. But as I said, we are putting in process plans. We're talking to our donors. We're talking to our development partners, and we want to balance it in a way so that
before we go to the break, you did say we have to move on, but some people have to be held accountable.
Yeah, of course.
Because if
of course
our people do not have running water, our nurses do not have anything in the quarters, our hospital facilities are run down, and if it was used for corruption or abuse of office, as you said, don't people have to be held accountable for that?
Absolutely. If there is a criminal element, then that ought to be dealt with. But as I said, Vijay, a lot of this wastage can be avoided, may seem legal, but it has happened.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Meet Chalesi the businessman. Chalesi is sad because business is bad. Like really bad. He longs for the better times, times of joy. Yeah, colorful times. And now he drowns his pain by listening to some radio.
Listen to it on the fijivillage app.
Have you booked your booth at Fiji Showcase?
It's back!
Well, what do you know? Fiji Showcase is back! Book a booth for your business now. Don't miss out.
Welcome back. Our guest tonight, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad. Professor Prasad, the National Economic Summit was held last month. Other consultations are underway and more summits are expected. We'll talk about the summit and some of the details regarding that. Questions have been raised on the budget for such events. There were a lot of comments made, and when we are supposed to be tightening our belt, cutting down our expenditure, why are we having so many consultations? As Minister for Finance, how are you dealing with this?
Well, first of all, Vijay, there was a lot of misinformation. Let me just explain what happened. When you go for an event, I take a cabinet paper. As a Minister of Finance, I take a paper to cabinet and say that this is what we want to, this is something that we announced in our manifestos, National Economic Summit, and I took a budget of 500,000. And in that paper, I said very clearly that this is the budget that we will take to our sponsors. Whatever we get from our sponsors will be part of the budget. So we went to the sponsors and said, this is how much it will cost. Kalabata, I know, a lot of people talked about it. This is what will needed for logistics. So that was a budget that Cabinet approved. And once it was approved, we went to the sponsors. And we collected, we spent a total of, the budget was, 360, not 500. 500,000 was for Girmit. So 360. So out of the 360,000, we spent $281,423.65. And out of that, we had 170,000 sponsors. So at the end of the day, we spent, the actual amount that the taxpayers spent is $111,423.65. That's the total budget for the summit that the taxpayers forked out. Let me tell you this. There was some kind of a mini summit in 2011. And you know how much it was they spent? I was told about 250,000. So, and to spend 111,000 for an economic summit where we got 500 people, and I have attended economic summits before, Vijay. I took part in it. I never saw the kind of passion. People did not get out for lunch. They were so busy in the thematic working groups. Suddenly, after 16 years, they had an opportunity to sit down and talk and tell people like us and everybody else in government, the ministers, what they thought, what needed to be done, where was the problem. And for 2 days, until Friday afternoon when we closed the summit, people stayed put. And 111,000 in the context of, I've talked about the Wastages. Yes, but this was a very important exercise. We had to do that. We had to tell the people. And in fact, after the economic summit, the amount of confidence, everybody who attended it, some of them who criticized also attended and found out that, it was an exercise that was worth. The money that we spent, if you say, government should not spend 100,000 to come up with a proper consultation, proper plan, resolutions, looking at, where we were after, 16 years. And that money is part of government. It's like saying, you don't travel overseas. If the Prime Minister has to make 2 trips or 5 ministers have to make 2, you don't there because, we are tightening our belt. Yes, we are tightening our belt. That's true. But we are tightening our belt sensibly. We are making sure that we don't spend millions. We don't waste millions. We're not talking about not wasting $110,000 or $111,000 or $400,000. We're talking about stopping wastage of millions and millions of dollars. That's the context in which I want people to understand. And all these hoo-ha and people who knew this, what an economic summit is, people who had experience, went on a political, bandwagon to say, we were wasting money. And we kept explaining that this is a budget. So let me just tell the people of this country, this $111,000 was worth spending. Whatever was spent, it probably helped the economy. It's a small drop in the ocean. But money is well worth spending. And I think it has given everybody who attended this summit, and the staff, the civil servants, the ministers, it was an eye-opener. The fresh ideas, the wisdom that resided in the people who are out of government and who are now prepared to help. So what we have done is the working groups will become permanent features. They will hold us to account. They will say, okay, we recommended this is what the resolution, what we've done. So it was a very good exercise, and I think the government made the right decision to hold an economic summit, and it is going to be very fruitful.
Consultations in other areas, several laws you'll be having consultations on. You have specific budgets for it to ensure that there's also a lean way of doing things?
Sure. Precisely, Vijay. In fact, the Ministry of Finance, I'm not going to be the most popular finance minister. And finance ministers are not supposed to be popular, in terms of managing government finances. And I don't want to be popular amongst my colleagues or amongst, civil servants and those I want to make sure, it is my responsibility as Minister of Finance. And it is the government's responsibility to ensure that every dollar that we spend is well spent and that it's not wasted. So we are working on that. Sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy to control every small expenditure everywhere. But what we want to do is to cut down the volume of wastage that happened before, and we've got that handle very clearly now.
You talked about the $500,000 budget. Now that was for Girmit and Ratu Sukuna Day celebrations. Yeah. You know that questions have been asked whether it's warranted and whether it's prudent financial management, knowing we are financially strapped. As Minister for Finance, you have asked in the past the importance of having a public holiday for Girmit. Now we have Ratu Sukuna Day as well. Yeah. The question of being financially strapped, allocating $500,000 each to these events, reasoning behind that?
Again, Vijay, let me just say this. When we look at this expenditure, you got to look at it in the context of wastage of millions of dollars. This is an expenditure which is worth spending. Now, when you say consultation, commemoration, celebration, allocating, $1 million or $500,000 or 100,000, it's an expenditure. It's like, operational expenditure, where you do things in government, but government spending also helps the economy. Without government spending, you can't do anything. So it's worth, a lot of the laws in this country that have been made in the last 15, 16 years were made without consultation. And we believe that it's worth spending some money, some funds, consulting people, having an idea, letting people, criticize a particular law. I mean, when the draft media law came in, we went to consultation. Media came out, people came out and said, you people said, should have been repealed. Government listened to the consultation, what came out. And we came up with a better decision. If we had not gone for consultation, we would have gone and said, okay, this is what we think is good, it would have been done. You people would have been very unhappy about it. The world would not have been happy about what we had promised. So with the Girmit expenditure, this is a very, very historical decision. Very, very historical decision. First time in the history of this country, Girmit Day is going to be declared a public holiday. Prime Minister announced it before the election in his campaign. I supported it when we get into government. And the reason why we allocated $500,000 for this event, this is a budget. $500,000 budget approved by Cabinet for Ratu Sukuna Day. In fact, for Girmit, we already have, because in the approval, in the Cabinet decision, we said we will look for sponsors. We've already got more than 100,000 sponsorship for the Girmit as well. So, and it's possible that we will get more. But the significance of this event, Vijay, cannot be underestimated. It is bringing people together. It is remembering our own identity. Girmit history is not just a history of Indo-Fijians anymore. Girmit history is the history of Fiji. And if you look at the program that we are organizing, it's a 5-day program, starting with Navilada on tomorrow, where we want to declare Navilada as a peace village. It's a historical event that people didn't know, that when our forefathers, had their ship Syria wrecked on Naslai Reef, they were drowning. The villagers, swam, showed their bravery, compassion, went and saved many of them. Those who perished were brought and buried there. And we want to, and the amount of excitement, Vijay, that has come from the people, from young people. I'm actually quite surprised. All these young people are now coming out, realizing, and that expenditure, therefore, is really justified. I mean, okay, people are saying, what does this mean? We only don't live by eating and sleeping. There is much more to an identity, to people, and a nation. And I think people should be applauding the Prime Minister, applauding the government for declaring Girmit Day a public holiday. Some people are saying, why it's not on 14th? Because 14th is a Sunday. And Sunday we have a reconciliation, the Methodist Church, and it's quite brave of them to come out and say, look, we hurt the people of Indo-Fijian origin. We want to apologize to you. We want reconciliation. We're not forgetting 87. We were part of the people who were opposed to 87. We were opposed to the 1990 Constitution. Jairam Reddy was deposed in the 87 coup. He worked with Rambuka later on. Yes, we don't forget 87. But we have to look back, we have to learn from history, but we have to look to the future.
So you believe that this amount of money going into racial unity, looking at history of Fiji, exhibitions, people coming together is totally justified?
Totally justified, is building confidence. I mean, Vijay, for 15 or 16 years, people didn't feel that freedom. I can see the excitement. And that's good for the country, good for the economy, good for the people, good for building confidence. And I am confident, and I want to invite all the people, the critics as well. We accept, some of the criticism. I'm not distracted by criticism, because as people in the opposition, I've always fought for freedom in this country. We've opposed dictatorship. We've opposed, media control. And we, as a government, we will accept criticisms. We know what people are saying. We understand that. But I'm also asking the people to understand where we are coming from.
Now, what are your priorities? Basic need, we go back to water.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not available for many homes 24/7.
Yeah.
Underinvestment, lack of upgrade,
Yeah.
a lack of advanced planning has resulted in Water Authority of Fiji needing $800 million over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Can you get the finance to get this done and to ensure that the money is utilized effectively and efficiently?
Vijay, we will, over a period of time, we are focused on it. There is already a plan, as I said, the National Infrastructure Plan, and water features very prominently in all my discussions with our donors, international partners. They have done a lot of analysis. They understand this. So we have a plan. And as I said, I sympathize with the people. I get water cuts in my area every now and then. We are making sure that, wherever these things happen, people do get water supply on time. I know people call me directly as well sometimes. When the Virya thing is commissioned, Virya water project is commissioned, probably by July or August, we will solve quite a bit of it, but the problem will remain fixing the leaking pipes. And for that, we have a plan of action. It may not happen overnight, but it will happen.
It is quite horrifying. Yeah. Half of the water treated already,
exactly.
Losing through these old pipes, leaking right through the ground.
Vijay, you're absolutely on the dot. It's horrifying. I don't know how this was not noticed in the last 10 or 15 years.
I've had people even staying in places like Tadirwa, Namandi Heights. They're saying they don't have water for days. So you're saying by July, this fix is coming, but again, we have to fix all our pipes as well.
Absolutely, and what the Water Authority is doing, and I think the CEO is doing a great job. The staff are working very hard. I know personally, I have been talking to them. The minister is on top of it, and we want to make sure that wherever, in some of the squatter settlements like Sakoda and other places, it's always been a very difficult, in terms of infrastructure and all that. So, they are looking at how we can put water tanks, store water. The drought is not helping. So, in some reservoirs, for example, one in Daloisuba, Namandi Heights, all these areas, sometimes, during the night, water may not come after 10 or 11 because they are filling the reservoir so that the next day it's available. And so the drought is not helping us. But what we want to ensure is that where the water is not available, water must be carted and supplied to the people.
What is your plan for health facilities and workers? Because our health sector, there's so much that has been said that there's lack of equipment, the staff, they have issues as well. You have a lot to do there, Professor Prasad.
Vijay, you are absolutely right. If I can just give you, so some of it is not just money. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's not about funding. I'll give you an example. We went to Wainikoro Health Center, and I asked the officer who was in charge of the X-ray department. There was one X-ray machine. So I asked her, I said, how is it going? How are you doing? She'd say, the X-ray machine has not been working for 3 months. And I said, why? He said, the battery has expired. The process, they should have ordered the battery. They know when the life of the battery expires. It takes 3 months or 4 months to get it from overseas. So a lot of the simple things. I mean, I went to Decay Health Center, and the place was falling apart. The doctor, where he is in the office, is sitting. The tiles are all broken. There's dust. The nurses are operating in a small room. The people waiting in the shade. I grew up there in the 70s and 80s. It was better that time. So I asked them, and last week, the Minister for Health sent me pictures. They said, oh, we have plans to build something new, so that's why we're not doing anything. And meanwhile, There is not even a plane, and this health center is falling apart. So I said, get off and go and repair this. And the Minister for Health also realized, he was horrified and shocked. But we have fixed it now. Now you can see it looks painted, there is some decency, there is place for people to sit and get proper care. This is a micro example, Vijay, but this is the state of decay that we are dealing with. And I think we are dealing with it effectively. After the budget, you will see much more energy, speed with which we are going to do some of these things.
Some issues about some of the budgets, how high percentage of the money was already used when you came into office?
The particular example was FRA budget. So the almost 100% of the budget was used in 6 months. And obviously there's some explanation which makes sense that during the dry period, but we were looking at the rainy season from October, November and December. So things like that have happened, but as I said, some things we can't do much, we just have to move on. We have to make sure that some of the wastage, the repetition of these things don't happen, and we are putting in processes and procedures to fix that.
What are your thoughts on VAT being proposed to go up to 15%? Basic items on zero VAT to be moved to 15% as well. The Fiscal Review Committee, they have made a recommendation. Of course, the government will have the final say. Fiscal Review Committee is saying that this is the pain we have to go through. What is your stand as the Minister for Finance?
Vijay, let me just make this very important point, because this is what is going around. I mean, there are some irresponsible, irrelevant, if I may say, politicians.
Who are these people?
Who have actually gone and said, there are people out there who are saying, the VAT has been increased by to 15%. They're creating unnecessary panic. Somebody told me that some supermarkets have increased prices. I mean, it may not be because of VAT, but for other reasons. So what has happened is, let me just give you one more example about these expenses. When did you, in the last 16 years, have an information from a ministry to say, this is the event we are holding in this hotel, this is the budget, this is what we are spending? We have been very transparent and open. And for the budget process, that's what I wanted to do. That's why I appointed the Fiscal Review Committee. The World Bank came up with a report and said, this is what we think. It's their report. It's there for debate, discussion. Fiscal Review Committee members haven't finalized the report, but they have found out, they have done their calculation. They are saying that these are the options. You could have a flat rate of VAT of 9%, no zero rating. Some are saying,
That is their recommendation.
No, I mean...
that is their recommendation.
That's the option. They're looking at a number of options. The World Bank is giving a number of options. Scenario 1, Scenario 2, Scenario 3. And as the Prime Minister said, the government will decide at the end of the day, after looking at... So nothing has been decided. I mean, some people are still lying, as they lied before the election. They said, the new government comes, your social welfare will be gone. New government comes, you'll lose your scholarship. New government comes, things will fall apart. They're still talking about that. Nobody has talked about the fact that as soon as we come into government, Vijay, we allocated $50 million, redeployed, looked at all the wastage, less priority areas, cut it down, and said $50 million should go to looking after our kids before they go to school. Each one of them should get $200. We helped more than 214,000 students from preschool to high school. We extended the bus fare subsidy. So I managed the expenditure very well, got the funds redeployed, made sure where it was needed, made sure I allocated more funding for FRE. I know it's not enough, to fix some of the immediate priorities. And here are people, detractors who are lying about what the government will do. Some of the things that we have announced, for example, writing off TEL's debt, that was a huge burden on our middle income poor people. We are going to take that burden off, and we would still be able to, within the same amount of money, Vijay, that every year went to providing TELs, because they had opened up the floodgate. They didn't manage it properly. Within the same amount of money, and we will announce that in the budget, within the same amount of money, we'll make sure that everybody gets to a university or a college or on a scholarship, but the only requirement would be that you'll be bonded to save the country for a period of time.
That was a question about TELS, and I'll go to that. So on VAT, to make it clear, final decision will be made by government.
Exactly.
Recommendations are coming through. You're not listening to the World Bank and saying we will take this lock, stock, and barrel.
I mean, as I said, we will analyze everything that people are, and there are some sensible things that people are saying. And the debate is good. The debate is good. All I'm saying is people should not go and lie that we have increased the bet to 15%. One politician, put a calculation. He should have put a calculation to say, okay, if you put 15%, this is what will happen. If you make it to 9%, he should have given 2 or 3 options. But no, he just said,
the politician you're talking about is Mahendra Chaudhary.
Well,
do you feel that he's a big detractor in what you're trying to do?
Look, as I said, criticism doesn't distract me. I like good criticism. I listen to those, even if they are lies. But all I want to say to the people of this country, our ordinary people, because I understand their anxiety. We will make sure whatever we do in the budget, that the most vulnerable, the most needy will not be neglected by government. In fact, some of them can expect good news as well.
A message that is coming through here is people are saying they're already seriously affected by rising cost of living and prices of many non-price control items, Professor Prasad, and they continue to increase month after month. What is your comment? What are you doing about it?
Well, as I said, Vijay, let me just give you some example. While certain initiatives to cushion the effects of rising cost of living, by way of price control and VAT reduction, you remember, VAT used to be, high. Then in 2014, we were saying we're going to reduce VAT from 15 to 10%. You remember that? Then the previous government finally decided to reduce the VAT from 15 to 9% instead of 10%. But after that reduction, in the bi-monthly surveillance of the last 2-year period by Consumer Council 2021 to 2022 revealed that in increasing ranging, the price of goods still increased, even in 2021 and 2022. So what we are saying is that what people are going through, we understand that, is a problem compounded before COVID, after COVID, and is still continuing. So what we have to weigh the option. So there are 2 options. Sometimes it's very difficult to bring the price down because there are other factors. But what governments can do is to cushion the effect of that increase in price by directly supporting those people who need it most.
Giving targeted assistance.
So that's one of the good options that we will have and we will look at. So if we say, if we're going to collect $200 million more, if we can put the 200 million back into the pockets of the people by helping them, by increasing social welfare, by increasing, targeted assistance, that is not only helping the people, but it is also helping the economy. It's also helping spending. So we have to look at the options, and we are doing the sums. We are doing all the analysis. Our staff are on to those analyses full time, And we are coming up with some interesting
So
scenarios.
you are assuring people that you have done an analysis of the expenditure. You
Yeah.
believe there has been a lot of wastage,
Yeah.
which you will now turn into saving
Yeah.
and looking at redirecting how the work should be done.
Plus-
and at the same time, re-looking at how revenue should be coming
Exactly.
in. Not just looking at revenue, how
No.
revenue can be
No,
increased.
no. We are looking at three things, Vijay. We are looking at increasing revenue, cutting wastage, and growing the economy, as well as spending more on those who need more.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Download the all-new Fiji Village app. Get the latest news direct to your mobile. Get the latest sports updates from our scoreboards online. Navigate easily through our categories. Watch videos from Straight Talk interviews, local music videos, sports, and many more. You can now easily listen to your favorite radio stations from your phone. Download the all-new Fiji Village app right now.
Now? Now?
Meet Chalesi the businessman.
I'm okay.
Chalesi is sad because business is bad. Like really bad. He longs for the better times, times of joy. Yeah, colorful times. And now he drowns his pain by listening to some radio.
Listen to it on the Fiji Village app.
Have you booked your booth at Fiji Showcase?
It's back!
Well, what do you know? Fiji Showcase is back! Book a booth for your business now. Don't miss out.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We're going a bit extra time thanks to Professor Prasad staying a bit longer to address issues that have been sent by you as well in relation to what you want clarified on Straight Talk. Question from Muhammad Hassan and his wife, who are retired and residing in Lautoka. Sure. They're saying this is concerning the government's promise about the restoration of FNPF pension rate. The rate was reduced from 15% to 9%. Will you restore the FNPF pension rate?
I want to thank Mr. Hassan for raising that question, Vijay, because he's right. There was a unilateral decision by the military government by a decree to reduce pension for people who had already gone on a plan. So, for example, if you had gone on a plan, you planned your life after retirement that your pension will be 15%, and somebody comes unilaterally by a decree, takes it away. And many people, suffered as a result of that. And when it was challenged in court, then they brought another decree that you can't challenge it in court. So I think the FNPF is already looking at that. What happened during COVID was that the government reduced the employer contribution, and in fact the biggest beneficiary was the government. because a lot of the government employees, about $4 to $5 million a year was saved by government. Now, what that meant was the employees, people like yourselves, you were not only contributing to your employer, helping the employer by taking a reduced employer contribution, but you are also helping yourself by reducing your own contribution to FNPF. So I can say that we will restore the full deduction pension rate, as part of our budget process, so that the employee contribution and the employer contribution is back to what it was.
Question from Nishant Naidu.
Yeah.
There should be other ways like reducing government expenditure as the solution can be mitigated, and they're talking about revenue as people's more burden will be put on people's shoulders who are already suffering because of high food prices. What's your comment on that? You've said that you will be looking at targeted assistance.
I understand that. I think that's a very good question. We will not only look at people who are below the poverty line, Vijay. We will also look at people who are on the margins. So, for example, somebody who there is no tax until 30,000. The threshold was raised from 16 to 13. But people who are earning, say, 35,000, you would say that they are on the margins of the threshold. People who are in poverty, by a certain income below, which is the poverty line. Above that, they are on the margins. So when we do the budget, when we look at the tax policies, we have to make sure that we don't unduly punish or put burden on those category of people as well. So we will be very mindful, and I think the budget will address that.
TELS loans and scholarships. Those who have had TELS loans will be scrapped, as you've said.
Yeah.
They will be bonded.
Yeah.
What is the total amount we're looking at?
It's over 600,000 over the years.
600 million.
600 million. Over the last so many years is accumulated. A very small number of students, a very small amount was being paid anyway. And it's a huge burden on people the students who come from low income. So, if you come from, say, a rural school, you get 290 marks or 300 marks. You don't get a topper scholarship. You go on loans. You come out with a degree. You end up with a job. You have a debt burden of $30,000 to $40,000 depending on the course you do. So a lot of students, a lot of parents found it difficult to pay. So the richer ones, had the discount. So if you were able to go and if your parents were able to go and borrow from the bank, you would pay 50%, get 50% discount, you were better off. Those in the lower income category could not do that. So what we have done, and I think it's a good policy, a good decision, that we're going to scrap all the debt and make sure that with the same amount of budget every year that is spent on the continuing students and the new students, we would be able to put everybody and bond them for 4 years to save the country, and after that they go. If they don't save, then they pay whatever.
So that was the next question. People were asking what happens to those still on TELS and toppers? What happens to the students coming out of secondary school at the end of this year and following years? So the system would be...
catering for all of them. There would be, I can assure all the students who are there, nobody is going to be affected in a bad way.
So tertiary education on scholarship, but bonded.
Bonded.
Why are roads and potholes not being repaired in Nandi, Lotoka and Ba? According to this resident from the West, taxes are paid by citizens from everywhere, not just from the capital city.
Yeah. No, that's a fair question. And Vijay, I can tell you there are issues with the damage to the roads, potholes. Some are bad in some areas. I think the Fiji Roads Authority, I get a lot of call. There was a call I got from Reki Reki a few weeks ago, and obviously we relayed that information. The FRA and the minister responsible are working on it, and I can say this, that going forward, the maintenance plan and the budget process will be taking care of that, but I hope that they will be fixed sooner than later.
Not just focus on Suva.
No.
Question from Nitesh Chandra. Would it be possible to ask, this is his question, a company which is managing the entire event for the Girmit Day, how was it chosen? Chandra says they have not seen any tender coming out for it, so how was it advertised and chosen?
I'm not sure what that question relates to, because I know that there was an expression of interest for the media event coordinator, but I can answer that to Ritesh. I'll find out,
Nitesh Chandra, you get your answer after the finance minister.
Yes, I don't know what company he's referring to, but I know there was an expression of interest for a media event coordinator.
A question on when you will increase the minimum wage rate to $5 an hour.
Vijay, you remember that we offered that in 2018.
2018 manifesto.
2018 manifesto. Of course, that manifesto, we did not get into government in 2018. But the campaign we did in 2018, arguing for a decent living wage, put pressure on the previous government. So in the last term, they raised it to a minimum of $4, and that minimum wage would be reviewed. And I'm sure it can't come down, it has to go up. And I hope that it will be $5 once the review is done.
When will the review be done?
It'll be done in the next few months.
I
think the Minister for Industrial Relations has already announced that. I don't know the exact timing of it, but he's already announced.
The Suva Taxi Association is asking, when will the open rank taxi system be removed as promised, and when will the taxi-based system return?
I'm not sure whether we did not have that in our manifesto, but I think we understand the issues. This was a system that was put by the previous government, and I'm sure some of these things, Vijay, will take time. It will go under review. We don't want to just change things for the sake of changing it. We want to see what happened, how has things happened over that period, because sometimes no matter how bad a policy is, a decision is, by the time it takes effect, there are a lot of intended and there are a lot of unintended consequences of that policy. So I think the Minister for Transport is looking into that.
The further question, when will the final taxi fare increase decision be made, as it is still an interim increase?
That's another issue that comes under the Minister for Transport, and I'm sure that will be looked at as well. I can't give you a definite answer on that. Yeah.
Now, Professor Prasad, there are claims being made that the National Federation Party is keeping quiet when racist comments or policies are being made, or when non-Itoke are being replaced by Itoke in certain positions. What is your stand on this as the leader of NFP, Deputy Prime Minister? Can you also clarify the issue regarding the coalition government agreement on sharing of board positions based on percentages, etc.?
So, first point, replacement of Itoke and non-Itoke. I think there are people out there, the same people who talked about everybody being a Fijian, are the ones, who are inflaming and talking about, suddenly, Itokes, Indo-Fijians are being replaced with Itokes. Of course, there have been changes made. I've made changes. I've made appointed board members who are not Itokes, who are Indo-Fijians. There are Indo-Fijians who have been replaced by Itokes. So, we are a new government. Plus, people have to understand that we are a coalition government. It's an NFP, SODELPA, PA government. and we have a coalition agreement. Let me just assure the people, and I have not seen within the government, a systematic or a deliberate or a concerted effort to remove people, of a particular ethnic origin. So I'm not sure where people are coming from. I think it's a perception created by our distractors and some on the social media that somehow, because that was the campaign. That when Rambuka comes in, Indians will be finished. Indo-Fijians will be gone. They'll all be replaced. They'll take away everything. This is the campaign, that the lies that they told before the election, and some of those lies are still continuing. The NFP has a history, a 60-year history of fighting for the rights of everybody, including Indo-Fijians. I'm not going to sit in a government, I'm not going to be part of a decision-making machinery as a leader of the NFP if I see, a racist agenda. I don't see. Okay, there are appointments that have been made. Every government, you look at the last 16 years, the appointments that were made, people, the Itoke community felt that they were totally marginalized in the boards. Somebody did an analysis. Where were all these people then, talking about it? I think that we as a government are moving very carefully. I'm not saying that everyone will be happy with the appointments. I will not be happy, other ministers may not be happy. If I make certain appointments, the Prime Minister makes certain appointments, there will be disagreements. We accept that. It's a three-party coalition. We have an agreement that Sodalpa will have certain positions, that board members will be shared. That's there. And we feel that it's something that we have to manage. But it is not a situation where some people in government have a racist agenda. The people are saying to us, on the contrary, why are you not removing people? Why, this fellow was with Fiji First. He was a sympathizer of Fiji First. I've been told by so many people about my staff in the ministry. And I'm saying, no, I am going to look at the merit. And nobody, including the Prime Minister or anyone, has come and told me, Minister of Finance, you need to remove this person because he's an Indo-Fijian or because he was a sympathizer of Fiji First. There were people who were sympathizers openly in government. They're still there. So, yes, I accept the fact that this is a coalition government. Not everything that will happen will always be perceived as right. We acknowledge that, but we have to make. We have a job to do as a coalition government. Coalition is very solid. We are working together. Despite what the perception might be outside, but the coalition, Vijay, is very strong. We are united. We know that the country deserves better, and that's where our focus is. But let me just repeat, NFP has a history, and we will never compromise on the rights of everyone in this country, which we have fought. And the day, we feel that we can't uphold it, we shouldn't be existing as a party. And that's what we have always said, our leaders in the past have said, and I have kept that. And I want to assure the people, this is a coalition government. This is a step that we have taken as leaders to take the country forward. There will be problems, there will be issues, there will be irritants, there will be perceptions, but I can assure you that we are focused on delivering the best for the people.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad, thank you for coming on our show to be ready, always ready to be held accountable, any questions. And we also would like to state that when people come on Straight Talk, they don't get their questions in advance. So they come and they sit down and say, fire away because I'm ready to be held accountable. So thank you very much on behalf of our audience. Until Friday at 5 p.m. We have a special Straight Talk on Friday at 5 p.m. And that is with the Girmit Chair for the celebrations, and Assistant Minister for Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, Sashi Kiran, Dr. Anurag Subramani, USP academic, historian and writer, and Maramana Rokotuin Reketi, Rote Mumu Kepa, appear on a special Straight Talk on Girmit, and we will be right here at 5 p.m. Friday. Professor Prasad, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.